Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update video on the current situation here in Spain, and it seems that another spat is brewing between the central government and one of Spain's most rebellious autonomous communities, that being Madrid, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation. You can see your name here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your support. Now let's get into the news, and things are heating up here again from a political point of view, especially between the Madrid government and the central government. A war of words is again taking place between these two governments, and yesterday tensions reached a new level. As we can see from this headline, Foreign Minister Leia is blaming Ayuso for UK travel restrictions, although the Basque country's incidence rate exceeds Madrid's. During the control session this morning in the Congress of Deputies, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, EU and Cooperation, Arantxa González Leia, blamed the freedom touted by the President of the Community of Madrid, Isabel Díaz Ayuso, for the restrictions on travel to Spain announced a few days ago by the United Kingdom. So Madrid getting blamed by the central government for the fact that Spain is not on the UK's green list, but on the amber list instead. And the foreign minister there saying that in Madrid we have too much freedom. But the Madrid Premier Ms. Ayuso is not one to take the abuse, and she hit back at the central government yesterday when she asked them not to criminalise Madrid society and to stop talking about bullfighting and drunkenness. Ayuso has asked the Sanchez government to stop criminalising the society of Madrid and talk about canes, bulls and drunkenness. The president has made this statement after the affirmations of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, European Union and Cooperation, Arantxa González Leia, who has assured that the irresponsibility and the bad figures of Madrid have affected the national average, and for this reason, the United Kingdom has not included Spain in its green list of safe destinations. So Madrid versus the rest of Spain at the moment. And it would be good to know what people living in other autonomous communities around Spain think of Madrid at the moment. Do you take the central government's point of view, or are you on the side of Madrid? Let us know. Now, as we all know, the state of emergency, or state of alarm as it was known here in Spain, was lifted last Sunday, and the regions around Spain are now free to impose their own rules, regulations and restrictions. But the central government haven't removed themselves completely from the picture, and every now and again they chip in with recommendations on what the autonomous communities should do. As we can see here, the Health Ministry is urging autonomous regions not to reopen nightlife or allow smoking in the street. The reopening of nightlife causes another clash between the government and some communities. The Minister of Health, Carolina Darias, has asked the regional ministers of health this Wednesday to maintain the measures approved on August the 14th by the Interterritorial Council regarding nightlife, alcohol consumption in the street, or smoking in public streets at a distance of less than 2 meters. So the central government there urging autonomous regions around Spain not to reopen nightlife, but unfortunately it's a bit late for that. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain. We can see the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days on its way down, now sitting at 173. The total amount of daily cases recorded now down 25% on previous data. There are currently 7,696 people hospitalized around the country with COVID, and there are 1,991 COVID patients in ICUs. There were 108 COVID-related deaths recorded yesterday, which is up 7% on previous data. And when it comes to the vaccination plan, we can see that over 460,000 people were vaccinated the other day, which was up 7% from the previous day. 13.7% of the population have completed vaccination, and 30.2% of the population have received at least one COVID vaccination dose. Now, as we all know, the UK is currently on Spain's red list for travel. People from the UK are not allowed to come to Spain unless they have a very good reason to do so, but it appears that that is about to change. As we can see from this headline from the Mallorca Daily Bulletin, Spain plans to allow Britons to enter without a PCR test from May the 20th, provided that the infection rates keep declining. Spain plans to lift its requirement for Britons to present a negative coronavirus PCR test upon arrival from May the 20th, provided that the infection rate in Britain keeps declining, the Spanish tourism minister said. It will allow the opening of the British market so that they can come to Spain, Regis Maroto told reporters after a weekly cabinet meeting, offering a glimmer of hope to the flagging tourism sector. Plans to lift the PCR requirement form part of a broader revision of EU regulations on non-essential travel from outside the bloc, which Maroto expected to be approved by May the 20th. They, Britons, could come from May 20th onwards without a PCR if the incidence rates are below the range currently under review, which is around 50 cases per 100,000 people, Maroto said. So start packing your bags if you're in the UK and you want to holiday to Spain this year, because that's one PCR test less you're going to have to do. Now, as I just mentioned, Spain is not on the UK's green list at the moment, it's on the amber list, but Spain's neighbouring country, Portugal, does find itself on the green list. And apparently that has led to a lot of people booking holidays to Portugal in coming months. As we can see here, the tour operator TUI switches to bigger planes as bookings to Portugal skyrocket. Europe's largest travel company, TUI, said bookings to Portugal had skyrocketed by 182% since it was placed on the UK's green list last Friday, allowing travel without quarantine. Chief Executive Fritz Josen said TUI would deploy the bigger Dreamliner planes rather than the 737s to Portugal to try to meet demand for seats from England's only green-listed mainstream holiday destination. However, Josen said the UK's very cautious attitude to restarting travel was an obstacle to recovery for TUI and would let Europeans get the best seats. He added, the relative movement to Portugal is enormous, but it's not a particularly big destination. What is needed is Spain and Greece. So Portugal currently on the green list, but Spain and Greece are not. And I think we're waiting to see if there's going to be a revision to that green list in coming weeks. Now, Spain's former Vice President Pablo Iglesias has only been out of politics for about a week now, but he's back in the headlines again today. And the reason? He had a haircut. As we can see here, Pablo Iglesias cuts his ponytail. Farewell to politics and his old image. Pablo Iglesias has cut his ponytail. This is the headline. The hair symbol par excellence of the Unidas Podemos leader has been cut and relegated to history. The newspaper La Vanguardia broke the news with images that showed the new look of the former politician. Beyond the change of image, the new style is a declaration of intentions. On May the 4th, he said goodbye to politics after losing to the PP candidate Isabel Díaz Ayuso, who swept to a major victory at the polls. In fact, the reaction of the PP in the community of Madrid has not been long in coming. From their Twitter account sharing a new image of the former politician, they have added the following quote, "It was Ayuso's fault." And here's a picture of Mr. Iglesias, sans ponytail, looking very relaxed, reading a book in his post-political world. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Paul Stewart. I think the vaccination program in Australia will ramp up as the Premier of New South Wales has just criticised the Australian government for its slow vaccination rollout. The Premier of New South Wales said that New South Wales needs to increase the rate of vaccinations and allow international travel. Yeah, Paul, thanks for the comment. We mentioned the topic yesterday, the Australian vaccination campaign. Somebody said, why are things going so slowly in Australia? One of the reasons I said yesterday is because the health situation in Australia isn't really out of control, or at least not compared to some European countries, South American countries, and other countries around the world. And the other point that I mentioned yesterday was that the Australian federal government also seems to be having trouble getting its hands on vaccines. And as you mentioned there, the critical voices are starting to be heard. The New South Wales Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, I think her name is. There are other premiers around the country also a bit critical of the federal government's handling of the situation. But a fast vaccination program in Australia is going to be fundamental if people want to resume international travel anytime soon. One here from Crikey. Hi Stuart, here in Menorca there are today 83 cases. We all have to wear masks everywhere, both inside and out. 4 people max to a table inside bars and restaurants, with 6 people to a table on the terraces. There is still a curfew from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Yeah, Crikey, thanks for the comment. I did read that the Balearic Islands are one of the few places in Spain that have a curfew in place at the moment. The Balearics, Valencia, and I think there are a couple of others, but I'm not 100% sure. The rest of the autonomous communities do not have a curfew. However, there are some restrictions when it comes to how many people can gather in the same place, especially when it comes to how many people can sit at the same table and have a meal together. And that's also something that I mentioned yesterday, that there's different rules and regulations around the country. What you can do in one autonomous community, you might not be able to do in another. So you have to check what the rules and regulations are before you cross internal borders here in Spain in order to avoid fines and breaking the rules. One here from Anne. Hi Stuart, I travelled backwards and forwards from Santa Pola to Alicante yesterday on the bus. There was absolutely no social distancing. Of course, everyone wore masks. Glad that I had been vaccinated and had my hand sanitizer with me. Still enjoying your daily news. Yaran, thanks for the comment, obviously referring to a piece of news that we saw yesterday that people are not using public transport in Spain as they were before the pandemic, people preferring to use private transport methods rather than jumping on crowded public transport. And that is one of the big problems we have with public transport in some of the big cities here in Spain, and in fact around the world, that it's very difficult to social distance on public transport, especially at peak times. But if you don't have a car, a bike, or any other means of transport, public transport is the only option. One here from Norman. Hi Stuart, regarding your comments about going to Portugal instead of Spain this year, I've just heard on the news here in Portsmouth that Brittany Ferries are considering opening up a new route from Portsmouth to Portugal. Now it has a green light. Yeah, Norman, thanks for the comment. And there you go. It seems that Portugal is going to be a very popular destination for people from the UK this year, given that it does have a green light and other popular tourist destinations do not. And Brittany Ferries obviously deciding there that it's a smart business move to set up a new route to Portugal from Portsmouth. But we'll wait and see how this one plays out. I know that Spain is still confident that it can get its numbers down and get on that UK green list this year. And as we saw earlier in the video, they're also planning on scrapping that PCR test for people coming here from the UK. One here from Sandra. Here in Portland, Oregon, there seems to be a correlation between restaurant access and an increase in COVID cases. Yes, Sandra, thanks for the comment. I also mentioned something about this yesterday, that in the north of Spain, I think it was Navarra, they did a study and they managed to show a direct correlation between bars and restaurants, or the interior parts of bars and restaurants opening, and an increase in COVID cases. They said that when they opened bars and restaurants and allowed people to socialize inside, COVID numbers went up. When they shut them, COVID numbers went down. And I did see other comments in the comment section from people saying something similar. So I'm not prepared to take any chances, and if I do go out and have something to eat, I will make sure that I book an outdoor seating area and not a place inside. One here from Ruby. Thanks for the update, Stuart. Wonder what Spain will do with all those that have had the AstraZeneca vaccine once and are waiting for their second jab. When I had my first jab, I was given the appointment for the second one, which was 12 weeks apart. But some are now saying it will be 16 weeks apart. Take care and stay safe. Yeah, Ruby, thanks for the comment. That is the dilemma that a lot of people here in Spain have at the moment. People that have been vaccinated once with AstraZeneca, still waiting to see what the government's decision is on that second dose. They haven't made their decision yet, and for a lot of people that 12-week period has expired, and now it's out to 16 weeks, and it might even get up to 20 weeks. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they're still deciding whether they can vaccinate with another vaccine and what the possible consequences of that would be. But the AstraZeneca vaccine is definitely the black sheep of the vaccine family here in Spain and other European countries, and I think the government is looking to get it out of the system as quickly as possible if they can. And finally, one here from Nigel. Thanks as always, Stuart. I think one needs to remember that the large majority of people observe the law, use common sense and act responsibly when travelling. The number of Brits who might fly into Portugal and then into Spain, I think, are minimal. It's all too easy to see a few dozen idiots in a press photo and fear that the world has all gone mad. But I know sadly that reporting social responsibility doesn't sell newspapers or attract clicks. Yeah, Nigel, thanks for the comment, and you're right, the majority of people do act responsibly. I said yesterday that there was nothing stopping people flying into Portugal, a green country, crossing the border into Spain, an amber country, and then going back to the UK from Portugal, and authorities would be none the wiser. I don't know how many people would actually do that, but it is possible. And when it comes to the press not reporting social responsibility, you're right again, it doesn't sell newspapers and it doesn't get clicks. And the majority of newspapers around the world and the majority of television channels around the world are looking for those sensationalist type of article because they do attract clicks, and it's all about the advertising dollar. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.